Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm not sure what happened there. I think I'm back online. I'm just going to wait for people to log in. Okay, can you guys send a message for me to let me know if I'm back online? I see 4 people are on. Perfect, Anwar, thank you. Should we wait or should I continue? People can catch up later. Okay, perfect. There were 3 questions there. I can't remember what the questions were. But back to the question of Becky Sele and the proposed amendments, or what my views are. Completely against them. I believe that they're restricting rights for law-abiding citizens where there is no basis for anything whatsoever. My philosophy is that they should be really targeting hardened criminals, but all they're doing is tightening the noose around law-abiding citizens. Things are already so tight in South Africa. We don't have a problem of a lot of negligent firearm use. So why tighten legal gun ownership in an effort to try and curb illegal gun ownership? Like I said before, there is no correlation between the two. It doesn't make sense for me. Back to those organizations that were formed, there's a couple of different ones. I'll mention them by name. And there's a couple of individuals fighting in their personal capacity as well. There's Gun Owners of South Africa, or GOSA as they go. There's South African Gun Association, that's SAGA. There is a Martin Hood, quite a well-known lawyer based in Johannesburg. So these are kind of guys who are actively fighting in a new sphere, in a political sphere more than anything else, for firearm rights. When I say firearm rights, I don't want to get too, gloom and doom, end of the world type of thing. But, when you look at personal defense and self-defense, self-preservation, we speak about security in layers. We speak about outer security, we talk about perimeters, we speak about cameras, fencing, structures, doors, gates, locks, so on and so forth. These are security to protect ourselves. You can also include in the equation security companies, police force, people who are meant to keep law and order, protect us, keep us safe, keep our areas safe. But you got to look at security in terms of being layered. So you got your outer layers. Your outer layer being your security companies, your police force who are meant to keep the streets clean and keep, crime off the street and fight crime and so on and so forth. Then you bring the layer inwards. You look at your home, how we structured our homes. I can almost, guarantee you that most people who we interact with, anything what we can call middle class people, we all have some type of security measures in our homes, whether it be CCTV cameras, gates, doors, alarm systems, beams, electric fencing, those type of things. That's another layer of security. Inwards, you talk about doors and gates inside the house. How many of us can guarantee that every single doorway has either a door and a gate, or a pretty solid door, or a trellis door or something also, and so on and so forth. We then get to the type of security where we call personal security. So you look at a lot of these events, hijackings, you look at housebreakings, which seems to be one of the most popular things, is housebreakings. When a person has bypassed all your security, and trust me, they've done their homework, they've done their research in terms of what types of security you have in place. They've timed you, they've done their research, they know exactly how many people are inside that house. They know exactly how many people are staying there. And sorry, I'm out of question. Okay, we'll come to that question. They know exactly how many people are inside there. Very seldomly will a syndicate or a group of criminals, 4 or 5 criminals, will they ever attack a random target. It's information that's been sold to them. It's information that they've gathered themselves by doing surveillance, and they know exactly what's where. They know exactly what they're coming for. When a person has bypassed all your security, so the hundreds of thousands of rands that an individual has spent on and gates, when they've bypassed all that, that person is now within your personal space. There is nobody who can stand here and argue and prove a point to say that there is anything else that anyone can do to prevent them from causing you harm other than the action that you can take as an individual. Yes, I want to talk about the spiritual aspect of things. We, all of us, and being Muslim Students Association, anyone else who's listening for that matter, I'm sure it's just Muslim people listening, anyone else for that matter, all of us obviously pray whenever we have a chance, whenever we want to pray for our safety, security, and we pray for the well-being of our loved ones. And yes, that is in place, and that all is in place. And we take our precautions in every sense of the word. We pay for our security measures and so on. What precautions have we taken for our personal defense? So the guy has bypassed all your security. He's now staring at you in the face. What have you done? What have you done as an individual to be able to? I have taken measures to secure my personal defense. What are you capable of? What have you invested in? And what are the options? I'm talking about based on the assumption that they have now bypassed all your other security measures. So I don't know if someone wants to give me an answer on the chat, on the comment section, but there's really nothing that you can tell me. If a person is coming towards you with intent to harm you or to hurt you, there's very little that anyone can do. And I'm talking about the actual fight itself. I'm talking about the actual confrontation where a person is trying to harm you. And a lot of the time I hear this from people, friends, family, about this whole mentality of let them take what they want and they won't harm you. And I agree to a certain extent that sometimes that is the better way to go. It could lead to less problems if you just give them what they want. But what about in the situation where they don't take just what they want and they will harm you? And it's happened to people in the past. I know I have personal family members who've happened to who've been harmed and attacked. And I know enough stories in the media and of people that I know where they've surrendered. They said, listen, take what you want, do whatever you need to do, but just don't harm us. And yet they'll still take everything and they'll still harm you. Our philosophy in terms of, like I said, I don't want it to sound very extreme, like now I want you guys to go out there and start shooting at people and whatever the case may be. But I'm saying that we need to make ourselves hard targets. By making yourself a hard target is when you invest in your self-protection, your self-preservation, your self-defense. Owning a firearm and knowing how to use it, and I cannot stress this point enough, knowing how to use it. We have the saying, buying a firearm and thinking you're safe is like buying a guitar and thinking you're a musician. It's the same concept. It's all about knowing how to use that specific tool for that specific need. It doesn't mean that you own a firearm that you are safe, but in my personal opinion, and we can argue the point, you cannot consider yourself safe if you don't own a firearm. Understand what I'm saying there? If you own a firearm, you are not safe, but you cannot be safe if you don't own a firearm. That's my personal opinion. I've lived my entire life by that, and I've made an entire business of that, and I followed my passion in the same way. Past and gotten past all your security. The police are not going to make it in time to protect you. No security company is there. These are all actions that take place after it has been done. The police, within reason, are not able to protect you. They cannot be everywhere 24/7. Now take that same concept of not being able to be everywhere 24/7 with an under-resourced, unmotivated police officer, which is 60 to 70% of the police force, have to only shoot 25 rounds of ammunition in a 12-month period. That means that that's all they get to shoot. To give you an indication of a sport shooter, just as an example of how much of effort goes into knowing how to use your firearm, a dedicated sport shooter would on average in a month, at a minimum, shoot 150 rounds a month. That is being conservative on average figure. Compare this to a policeman who is carrying a gun every single day and who is more than likely has to use that firearm to protect himself or herself and protect civilians, he's only being allowed to train 25 bullets, 25 rounds of ammunition in 12 months. Can you confidently tell me that you want a policeman to be there to protect you, to draw his firearm, to be able to fight the bad guys, fight criminals using his handgun? Or would you rather invest in that yourself? And like I said, this is based on the concept that there is no other method of self-preservation and self-defense. Like I said, you've made your dua, you've read you've prayed for your family, you put everything else in place, but now here's a situation and you need to take action because you are not sure what the outcome of this is going to be. I know personally, I've got two daughters. My eldest one is just over 2 years, and I've got a small one that's 5 months. I can tell you that when metaphorically things go sideways, I don't want to use the actual terminology, but when things go bad, and now it's a case of they are being attacked or they are being, threatened, they are going to look at me as the father figure, as the head of the household, for protection and safety. And if I can't provide that, who else is going to protect my family? That's a question for you. So in terms of self-preservation and self-protection, I think that there's really nothing else that there is out there in terms of what you can do to defend your life. Let's get on to Amara's question. The important question was, what about gun violence, abuse by legal gun owners, generally men, on their intimate partners? Yes, and this is something I wanted to speak about, was gender violence, gender-based violence, and about the importance of women and self-defense and firearms. Yes, look, this is a huge problem. And once again, the gun is a tool. Yes, the damage that you can do with a gun is much more than you can do with a stick or a knife or something else. But understand something, that the government has already put restrictions in place in terms of what can own a firearm. If that person has any criminal record, any history of violence of any sort, it doesn't have to be gun violence. If that person has been convicted of some criminal charge, they will not be allowed to own a firearm. That's the first point. The second point that you need to understand is that, like anything else in life, there are going to be exceptions. I can tell you that from the statistics that I have read, I haven't read that many cases of domestic, that's not the right word. Let's use what you said, abuse by legal gun owners on their intimate partners. Yes, I can pull out 10,000 cases of illegal gun ownership, which then led to domestic violence and abuse by partners. But legal gun ownership, intentionally, I haven't found anything. If you can find me some type of evidence or an article, then we can tackle that. But as far as I understand, and like I said, I do this for a living, and information reaches us from all different avenues and angles, I haven't seen much of that. But it is a concern. And there's only so much that you can legislate, and then it just comes down to procedures and processes, and just trying to find other avenues to educate people and trying to make them understand that it's not okay to treat your significant other in a violent way. Like I said, I think it's just merely a tool, and I think that having that tool will definitely make it a bit more make the harassment a little bit more. But I think that it's a much bigger problem than just the firearm. Back to the question about, there was a question, I can't remember, I think Talha asked a question about tightening legal gun laws to tackle illegal gun ownership, and has there been any effect? And this is a question that the legal gun owners are constantly asking through our different lobbies and the political organizations, and even as individuals. And there is such a different sentiment between a guy like Becky Sele, who's on top, and your local patrol officer or your local individual civilian who owns a firearm. People on the ground understand that the restriction, the constant discussion about tightening gun laws is so nonsensical. Like I said before, you've got two different types of firearm ownership in South Africa. You've got the illegal industry, which is the black market, where policemen are selling their guns on the black market, or people who are importing guns from over the borders and those type of things, or guns that are constantly being used in different crimes or being stolen or whatever the case is. And you've got your legal gun ownership. Legal gun ownership is always coming under scrutiny every time guns get out of hand. I don't understand this. It's almost like the government are so helpless and have this this feeling of uselessness, that they keep on wanting to tighten legal gun ownership when the evidence is stacked up against them. Legal gun ownership and illegal gun ownership have no correlation whatsoever. You might have a few incidents of people misplacing and getting guns stolen, but it's always a case of somebody breaking in and stealing out your safe, which is very, it doesn't happen that often. By law, if anyone who owns a firearm has to keep their firearm locked in an officially prescribed safe that has to be bolted to the wall or the floor. On top of that, I don't know how much more a person is expected to safeguard their firearms. I mean, personally speaking, I don't know if I should be advertising this. I personally own 14 firearms. Each of my firearms are sitting in a safe, and I must make sure to Allah nothing's ever happened. But I've always taken my precautions. I always have one on me. So if something ever has to happen, I'm able to act and take action. But I don't think that tightening legal gun laws are going to affect illegal gun owners. It's a completely different conversation. I mean, to the point where Becky Sele is so cynical. Just probably about 6 weeks ago on Carte Blanche, they had an interview with him, and they asked him about it. And his views are he couldn't give a valid answer in terms of why he keeps wanting to take guns away from civilians. He just keeps cynical answers like, well, individuals can't have so many guns. It's not fair. How can the individuals have more guns than the police? Well, the police lost 4,000 firearms in 6 years. That's why, the people who are meant to protect and serve are the ones who are actually, selling their guns on the black market and out the back door. A legal gun owner is not going to go through 6 months to 8 months of licensing just so he can sell the gun back onto the street. It just doesn't make sense. And it's so easy to track because with the policeman, when he's issued a firearm, sometimes the records are not in place, and there might be, he might be a case of booking in and booking out. So multiple people are using the same firearm. With individual gun owners, that serial number is tied to you forever. It's tied to you forever. So if you punch that serial number onto the system, your entire record and all your details are pulled up. No one is silly enough to spend money and then go through the licensing process and then use that gun for an illegal purpose. But it's just the nature of firearms that it's always coming under scrutiny because of what the media makes it out to be. Understand, guns are not bad. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. It's a tool, and people use it for the wrong purposes. And like I said, I firmly believe that if you don't have a firearm, you can't consider yourself safe. Onto the topic of females owning firearms. It just makes so much of sense for females to own firearms. And I wish, and I always encourage people, customers and friends of mine, to bring their sisters, wives, and everybody else to the shooting range to learn. Let's think about this logically. Most people who have families, okay, I don't know who the audience are right now, but let's talk about families because this is an MSA, mostly students. But let's talk about the older generations. Let's talk about people who have wives and children. Who between the husband and the wife? Let's just assume a normal kind of household where the husband is at work and the wife is at home with the kids. And I don't want to get into a gender-based argument on this, but let's just assume for a moment this is how it is. Wife is at home looking after the kids, and husband's out at work. Who spends more time with the kids than between the two people? It's obviously the wife. Who spends more time on the road, either picking up kids from school, grocery shopping, handling errands for the household? Who's more at risk on a daily basis between the wife and the husband? It's obviously the wife. The husband is usually at some type of business or job or corporate or whatever the case may be. He's kind of in a fixed place, probably has security features in place. It's the wife who's constantly at risk. So I don't understand how, more husbands or more ladies are coming forward and saying, listen, we need to learn. There are ladies out there. I get messages and phone calls all the time from ladies wanting to do training. And I encourage them. I say, people, please, of course, the criteria, though, which I would use to vet a client in terms of what would suit you, what type of firearm, what type of training, obviously will differ. Because your lifestyle differs, because your body type differs, because you need to be able to, carry a firearm and conceal it in a way that nobody knows it's there, and you need to be able to use it effectively because you dress differently, your body types are different, just everything about you guys is different. But it is such an important thing that we need more ladies to come forward and research this avenue, because you guys are, for lack of a better term, softer targets. Physically speaking, it's just biologically that men are stronger. So if someone comes to attack you, You do not want to play fair with them. You don't want to try and play on their avenue and try to go strength for strength. If you are armed, you are a harder target. You are less likely to be attacked, or if you are armed and trained with that, you are more likely to come out on top in a confrontation than the attacker. Also, in South Africa and overseas as well, there's the concept of concealed carry. What we mean by concealed carry is that I am totally against what they call open carry of firearms, meaning I'm completely against people who want to carry the gun out on their hip and walk around in the shopping mall and show everybody that they have a gun, or anybody who goes to an event or a public place and advertises the fact that he's carrying a firearm on him. It goes against the entire concept of what you are trying to achieve by carrying a firearm. It is that element of surprise. It is the fact that someone might want to attack you for that firearm. Number one, you're making yourself a target. Two, if someone attacks you, and they're going to attack you either way, irrespective of whether or not you've advertised that you have a firearm. The fact that now you have a firearm and are able to fight back means that you have the element of surprise. There's a very popular lawyer in South Africa, well, in Durban at least, who specializes in protecting individuals who've been involved in shootings, in self-defense type of shootings. And we've had numerous lectures and conversations with him where he's provided us evidence based on his experiences, based on his cases that he's worked with. And one of the things he said was that they go for soft targets. Criminals go for soft targets. So whatever you need to do to make yourself a harder target, you need to do that. If you make yourself a harder target, you are less likely to be attacked. What I mean by this is, if you are attacked in whatever scenario or situation you want to imagine, be it inside your household, outside your household, in a vehicle or not, if you retaliate within the legal realms of the law, which I will go through if you guys want to know a bit more about that, when you're allowed to use your firearm, I can almost guarantee you can watch CCTV, YouTube videos on this. They are less likely to stick around to see what happens if you are resisting and if you are showing a bit of, retaliation. Criminals don't want people who are going to fight back. And we as a community need to get out of this mindset of constantly putting our hands up and surrendering to whatever they want, because you are only feeding into the problem. I'm not saying everybody needs to become a martyr and you need to scream, takbir, and shout and fight back. I'm saying that take an interest in your self-preservation. All of us are students. All of us have qualifications of some sort. We've either studied, we've pursued things. We're constantly trying to improve ourselves mentally, psychologically, spiritually, and even physically. But why do we always neglect our safety and security? Why is it that whenever this topic of firearms come up in the community, it becomes a sensitive one? Why is it that whenever we tell people, take action, take an interest in your self-defense, try and make yourself a harder target, then it becomes a sensitive topic? As the MSA, for years, I don't know if you guys have had camps in the last couple of years, but there was a point where I remember every camp that I went for when I was a student, there was some type of shooting that happened. Let me say that again. Some type of firearm training, be it clay pigeon shooting or just in general target practice. Not only was it fun and created a bit of camaraderie, and it's a bit of an extreme sport because most people don't get to shoot firearms a lot, but it also created the interest and showed that, we as a community need to actually look into taking more of an interest in our self-preservation, our self-defense. And I don't know if things have changed over the years. And the thing is that the nature of how things are, socially and, within the community, everything and everyone is becoming a little bit more sensitive about different things. And with reason, I agree that things are becoming more sensitive. We are becoming a bit more in tune with different things. But I believe that, it's something that we need to definitely take note of. And yeah. So I don't know if there's any more questions that you guys have, and I hope I've covered my topic to some extent. I'm just going through my notes. Let me quickly talk about the legal parameters which one is allowed to use a firearm. So legally speaking, understand how the law works as well, because it works in your favor. There are 3 conditions that have to be met according to the law. And what I'm about to give to you is actually in the textbook itself that you have to study in order to be able to attain a firearm license. Rule number 1, or condition number 1 that has to be met. There has to be a threat against you or a third party. This third party can be any person, who's under your protection. Can be a person who's with you physically in the car, can be your child, husband, wife, friend, parent, sibling, whatever. As long as there is an attack against you or that person, you are legally within your bounds to take lethal action against this person. Second condition, the attack has to be against a person, not against property. And this is a sensitive one because people always ask me, but can I shoot the guy if he's stolen my car? No, you can't. Apparently, according to the law, from what I have been told, what I've been taught, if a person steals your car, no. But let's talk about number 3 and we look at the thing holistically. Rule number 3, the attack must have begun or is about to begin. Now, we can dissect this and speak another 1.5 hours about this. I don't want to get too much into it. But a lot of the time people are asking questions, when can I take action against a person? You need to understand that whenever there's an investigation that's done, so if you have to use lethal force against a person, you need to look at all the evidence that is present. And one of the things that they will look at is that, was there a threat to your life? And that's the most important thing. Was there a threat to your life that justified you using lethal force? And as long as you can prove that, you should be well within the realm of of the law. How do people contact me? For those of you, there was a question earlier, someone wanted to know my physical address. Just for the record, I don't want to use this as an advertising platform, but since we are talking so much and getting so intimate with each other about different things, let's talk about my shop. If you guys want to come and talk to me or chat to me privately on WhatsApp, I mean, I'm at home for the next 2 weeks. You guys want to sit and talk all day, we can discuss this and we can go more in depth if you have any more personal questions. The name of my shop is East Coast Arms, East Coast being KZN, Durban. Arms as in firearms, arms and ammunition. I've got a Facebook page, I've got an Instagram page, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on the MSA alumni group, so you guys can follow me there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram on my personal profile. You can add me and follow me and keep up to date with whatever is happening. The address for the shop, I'm based in Durban, in Springfield, so it's 174 Rochdale Road, Rochdale Road, Springfield. And obviously the shop is closed at this point because everybody is closed. But once the lockdown has been lifted, doors will open and we'll be trading as per normal. Talha, I think you asked a question earlier as well. What's a good non-bulky gun to carry for self-defense? I don't know if you saw earlier in my first video before I went down, I mentioned Glock. And I mentioned that Glock is probably the most popular handgun on the planet right now. And there's a reason for that. And I would definitely suggest a Glock. But look, even within the Glock range, there are a lot of different models, a lot of different sizes, and it's probably best for you to come into the shop or speak to me privately. But I think the most popular handgun on the planet, the most popular handgun in history is the Glock 19. And the Glock 19 is a compact, so it's not a full size. So if this is the full size, the compact is a little smaller. Chambered in 9mm, which is the most popular caliber. It's a NATO round, so it's universal. You'll always find ammunition for it. Glock is a good brand. Like I mentioned before, you'll always find spares and accessories for it. So if you need to keep the gun running for whatever reason, through wear and tear and so on, you're going to find stuff for it. So Glock 19, in my opinion, is your starting point, and you kind of work from there. If you want, you can get hold of me privately. You can find me on Facebook or get my number from someone. You're more than welcome to WhatsApp me, and we can take the conversation further from there. Amara, if we had an efficient SAPS that tackled criminals quickly, would gun advocacy for citizens be necessary? If we lived in an ideal world, yes. I think that if we lived in a world where bad guys didn't have guns and people didn't do bad things to each other, I would have liked to live in a world like that. And there probably are places in the world, not South Africa, definitely not, where you could, feel safe, personally speaking, without owning a firearm. I mean, if I had lived in a country, like I'm just throwing a country at you, don't hold me to any statistical information. But if we lived in a country like New Zealand, which has a almost negligible crime rate compared to South Africa, I would feel perfectly safe not carrying a firearm. I would love to do that. My entire passion for everything that I believe in stemmed from a need for self-defense. It wasn't kind of that I wanted to feel cool or anything else. It stemmed from a need, and it just kind of grew from there. And I pray and wish that we come to a point where we don't need firearms, because that means that there's one less thing in this world to worry about. It's one less thing to stress about. It's one less thing I have to worry about every time I leave the house with my 2 kids. It's one less thing I have to stress about every time my wife leaves to go shopping. Guns, people out there own one gun, know how to use it properly, understand its legalities, understand its restrictions, understand when, where, who, why, and how I can use it, and use it to protect my family and myself. I promise you that if more people who are of stable mind were allowed to own firearms or own more firearms, I think we as a community and we as individuals would be harder targets, and I think that would actually affect the crime rate in South Africa. I think that is it. I don't know if I've answered the question, if I've touched on the importance of owning a firearm in South Africa. I'll give you guys a few minutes, whoever's watching, if you want to pop a few questions. I'm just going to check on my WhatsApp if anybody sends anything. Nabil, Salam Hazard, what is the place of martial arts if we are using firearms? Excellent question. Look, like the term says, martial arts, and this is something that I've discovered in this whole journey of mine. Martial arts started off at first because I felt that there was a need to be able to handle myself or be able to protect myself if the need arose in a personal space, in a personal capacity. I think that martial arts has its place. If you look at any modern day type of combative application of empty hand fighting, it is rooted in martial arts. I don't think we need to forget that. But the thing is that martial arts in its true essence is slowly becoming a bit more obsolete. So anybody who still wants to pursue it, its place will remain as being pure passion for the art more than it is practical for self-defense. And I think that there is a global trend. MMA is considered the more contemporary version of martial arts, whereas traditional martial arts are becoming less and less popular. And less people are doing karate, taekwondo, and kickboxing, and more people are now reverting to mixed martial art because you're getting more in one, and it's more practical. So it definitely has a place, but its popularity is diminishing. And with regards to firearms, I think that given that, I always give this example to customers. 20 years ago in South Africa, there was crime. It was bad. It was nowhere near what it is now, but it was still bad. It used to be a case of maybe one guy would jump over your wall and steal clothes from your line. And I'm not pointing at anything racial. I'm just giving an example. I'm just saying it would be one guy jumping over your wall to steal your clothes from the washing line. Nowadays, it's 4 or 5 guys coming in a Golf 7 GTR, which is a fancier car than I own. And there's one guy on the road. There's 3 guys inside your house. There's another guy on the street. The level of crime, the level of threat that you're facing has escalated to a point where it's no longer you can carry around a knob carry and start, taking out a criminal. It's a case of these criminals, there's 5 guys all coming armed, and the level of training that you need to have needs to also, be a little higher. So gone are the days where you can walk around with a stick and fight crime. It's a case of now you need to own a firearm and resist if you have to. I've heard against getting Winchester plus P rounds as it puts strain on the barrel. Is this correct? This is a carry on or few shots situation. Will few shots in situation really damage the barrel? Look, Adidas P4, right? So plus P, for those of you who don't know, okay, so let me quickly explain this. Winchester is a brand of ammunition based in the USA. They've been around for a long time. Everybody knows Winchester. They make shotguns as well. Winchester plus P plus stands for the pressure extra powder inside this bullet. So basically, when they were making the bullet, the propellant that they put inside the casing was a little bit more, so that the bullet travels a little faster. Those type of rounds do put more strain on your barrel. The correct terminology is it accelerates wear. So if your gun is depreciating or wearing at a specific rate of use, you're shooting 150 rounds a month, and it wears at a lifespan. Every time you use plus P rounds, it wears at a certain percentage more. It's not something that you can quantify, but just that excessive use of it will accelerate wear and tear on your gun. Meaning that if there's certain parts that I've given you a lifespan of, say, a guide rod or a spring has so many 100 or 1,000 rounds on that specific part, by you using more plus P plus ammunition, it reduces that lifespan by a bit. So is it correct that is as a carry-on? It doesn't put strain on your barrel, so to speak. It's just normal wear and tear. And a few shots in a situation will not damage your barrel. It does not damage your gun. please understand that plus P rounds don't damage your gun, but excessive use of it will cause the gun to wear and tear more. And quite frankly, I don't know who can afford to use excessive rounds of plus P plus in their guns, because plus P plus rounds, especially Winchester Rangers, is expensive. If I remember correctly, I've had a few in the shop. I've sold them out now. You're looking at like anywhere from 10 to 12 rand a bullet. It's expensive to be shooting constantly in your firearm. Also, is a strain on the barrel for all handguns, or some notes on all handguns. Even though some handguns are built a bit better than others, the strain will be the same on all, not just a specific type. Back to Nabil, is a firearm an extension of the sword and bow and arrow, or does it have a different culture and ethos? No, it is an extension. I absolutely, sincerely believe. You know, in martial arts, they are taught that any weapon is an extension of the warrior himself. And I don't want to get too philosophical about this and get a whole fortune cookie on you guys. But yes, the weapon should be an extension, to the point that certain techniques within martial arts of using a sword or a stick or a spear, the movements are such that if you had to use those same movements without that weapon in your hand, that strike or that movement will still be effective, because it is merely a literal extension of your body. Meaning that if you throw a certain strike or whatever the case is, if you had something on, if you had a weapon, it would get a greater distance and it still be effective. But even without the weapon, it would still be. The handgun, and especially if you look at the way we train to a point where I'm so familiar that it must actually feel like it's part of your hand. And that's the kind of dedication and stuff that we want to see in people who are owning firearms. We don't want people owning firearms who are going to shoot it, once every 10 years, because then that's when a situation arises where people will say, "Oh, but I had a handgun and he took it off me and he robbed me for it." I don't want to attack people who don't train and who don't know how to use their firearms. People have different restrictions and different financial constraints and that type of thing, and I understand that. But it is so important to be able to know how to use what you need to use. And it is definitely an extension. It doesn't have a different culture. It doesn't have a different ethos. I mean, I've heard stories growing up about, during the Sahaba when they were in the middle of battle, or when not in battle, they would always carry their weapons with them, even into the mosque. The same culture. Some people have asked me, "Well, why do you carry your gun to the mosque? Are you expecting something to happen?" I said, "No, listen, it always stays on the mosque. It comes with me. It's just the same ethos. It's nothing makruh or haram or carrying your weapon around with you to religious places. There's nothing that stops you from doing that. It's not like I expect resistance there, but I mean, it's a case of have it and not need it, and need it and not have it. It's just something we live by." Best compact and inexpensive rifle, 9mm or 223. I'm gonna say Glock. People always tease me that I'm biased towards Glock. Glock don't pay me anything, even though I'm a Glock armor. They don't pay me to push their product. It's just, you do the research, and we've used so many of their products on the shooting range, and you speak to guys in the field like policemen and guys who are involved in the high level private security, and you ask them, what tools do you use? What products do you use in the field? And they tell you, listen, we only use specific products because, because tried, proven, and tested, and so on. So in terms of 9mm, I would definitely go Glock. If you're talking about handgun. Did I misunderstand you? Best compact and inexpensive rifle, 9mm or 223. Okay, now I understand. Talking about a rifle platform in 9mm. So 9mm rifles are not that popular in South Africa. You've got a handful of options. You've got the CZ Scorpion, which about 6 to 7 months ago, there was a really good special on them. I mean, they would normally retail for something silly like 2,000 rand. They were retailing for like 20,000 rand locally, and you could license them easily because it's a short kind of rifle chambered in 9mm, so it wasn't actually a rifle. But yes, there's the CZ Scorpion. There's also a brand called Grand Power. Grand Power is made in the Czech Republic in Eastern Europe. Grand Power Stryborg, those are quite affordable. Don't hold me to the price. They were retailing at about 17 or 18,000 over a year ago. That's also a good rifle. I know Dave Shear in Johannesburg have just came out with their own version called the DM9. It's an AR-15 in 9mm. It's an option to look at. It takes Glock magazines, so you can always find spare magazines. Glock don't make a rifle, unfortunately. If they did, I'd probably buy one. But no, they don't make rifles. They only make handguns. They don't make anything else. And I would rather go, if you're buying a rifle, go 223. It's definitely a better caliber, much more powerful. For sport shooting as well, it's good. 9mm, I would get if I already had a 223 rifle. I wouldn't get it as my first rifle. I would rather get a 223 as a caliber. There's a lot of different variety. You got Smith and Wesson. There's, excuse me, Stag arms. There is Rapid firearms. I've just recently got that into the shop, and so those are definitely brands that I would look at. Colt, but Colt stopped. They stopped coming to the country. My friend and I were very fortunate. We managed to get Colt licensed firearms in South Africa before they discontinued them. Colt, for those of you who don't know, one of the oldest firearm manufacturers in the world, and have become more of a collector's item more than anything else. So definitely would look at a Colt if you could get your hands on one. Best AR-15 to buy, Rabia, as a first semi-automatic weapon. Rabia, if you're asking to buy a semi-automatic AR-15 after hearing me talk, I'm pretty impressed. But best AR-15 to buy as a first semi-automatic weapon, like I answered for Adidas P4, definitely some good makes out there. Rapid Firearms is good. Smith & Wesson, Bushmaster, Stag Arms, Colt. These are all very good brands that you can easily find. UK guys can get hold of me if you want to get more pricing on them. If I can't supply you with something, I can gladly put you onto the people who can sort you out. Adidas, do we get HK MP5s here in SA? I haven't seen too many. There were a few floating around. The problem with the HK MP5s, I mean, there's no doubt about the quality. The problem is the price. You're gonna pay big dollar for an HK MP5. HK, for those of you who don't know, stands for Heckler & Koch, and they are a German make. Unfortunately, they pulled out of South Africa, so they actually don't have any representation in South Africa, which is a problem, which means that you can't get spares and parts and accessories. So even if they wanted to available at a good price, I probably wouldn't look at buying one, even though they are the golden standard in the industry. It's just a case of maintenance going forward. You're not going to have much support. Nabil, excuse my lack of knowledge here. Say, I heard that if you shoot, you have to shoot the head, as in you have to have a good reason to use it. No, that's not true. There's no legal encouragement for shooting any body part. All they want you to do when you are using lethal force is to justify why you use lethal force. Number one. Number two, there's no such thing as shoot to kill. The law is quite clear that you are not there to kill a person. You are there to stop the attack, stop the threat. If that means that you are able to, by some luck and miracle, that you are an excellent marksman, when bullets are flying and adrenaline's pumping and all the physiology, which is auditory exclusion, pupils dilated, accelerated heart rate, adrenaline pumping. If you are under that type of stress and still able to pull off a shot like shooting the guy's gun out of his hand, excellent. That will be enough to stop the attack. And I wouldn't I wouldn't say that there's a specific body part. When we train, when I teach people how to shoot, and when we were taught how to shoot, you're always told to aim for center mass. Why center mass? Is because if you are simulating a human torso or a human target, the center mass or the torso is the biggest moving part of the body, has all the juicy bits. If someone is trying to harm you and now you have to do whatever it takes to stop them, you've got your lungs. These are the juicy bits. If you aim for the center and you missed up, you're still hitting something. If you aim for the center and you missed down, you're hitting something, and then the sides as well. So you aim for the center mass, and if you miss, you're hitting something. You don't aim for the head, not from a legal perspective, but more from a marksmanship perspective, is because when you aim for the head, it's always bobbing and weaving and jumping around, and the chances are you're not going to hit it. There is a drill called the Mozambique drill. It came up in the 1970s by a guy who was had a confrontation against AK-47 wielding suspect, and he shot the guy twice in the chest as he was running towards him. And what he did was, after shooting the guy twice to the chest, he wasn't slowing down. He slowly lifted up his angle and shot the guy in the head. Where you two rapid fire shots to the chest and one to the head to kind of simulate stopping the attack. If you need to do that, that's fine, but there is no legal ramification. You are encouraged to shoot any specific part of the body. If you remember that there are three conditions or three things that are met when you are defining use of a firearm. The term use of a firearm is actually using the gun, meaning drawing, firing, and shooting. The second thing when it comes to using a firearm is drawing and pointing without firing, meaning that somebody can charge you for using a firearm against them or using a firearm for whatever purposes, even if you haven't pulled off a shot. That is what the law says. So even pointing a gun at someone is considered using a firearm, which is why we get so particular about safety, understanding what your limitations and so on and so forth are when using a firearm. So just by drawing a gun is showing intent. So there is no legal ramification in terms of you have to make sure you shoot the head or anything else. That's complete nonsense. Excellent point, Mo. Micro Roni is an attachment. So, Adidas, we were talking about buying a 9mm rifle. There's something called a carbine conversion. Basically, it's a housing for a weapon where you can slip your handgun inside it, and now it gives you a platform to shoot like a rifle. There is no licensing involved because you are not altering serial number. You are not changing the caliber of the gun, and you are not changing the action. You are not making the gun fully automatic. The gun still stays the same way. And that's an option to look at. I've got them on special for my opening special. If you want, like I said, contact me. Any reason our police use 223 instead of 308? I can give you a very simple answer for that. Cost. The cost of a 308 round versus a 223 round is it can be sometimes almost double, but no, it's just more a cost factor than it is anything else. And I'm actually glad, because given the level of training of some of our police, I don't want them shooting 308 rounds in the middle of nowhere, because that round is devastating. The 308 round is a hunting round. It's very powerful. It's also used in the R1 or Bayal, which is made famous, used in Rhodesia, and also used by our military a couple of years ago, I think, and they obviously discontinued that. But now our police use 223 instead of, and most militaries around the world use 223 instead of 308. I think merely for cost factor more than anything else. AJ Bulbulia, around how much should we budget for the Glock that you referred to? You must understand, look at the Rand dollar at the moment and the euro as well. It's plummeted. So the cost that I give you could be kind of ballpark. Things always go up, they don't come down. I would budget for an entry-level Glock, as in, just the cheapest Glock that you're going to find. Remember, Glock had 3 different generations. There's your Gen 3s, your Gen 4s, and your Gen 5s. Each generation is different. A couple of differences between them. All they are is iPhone 6, iPhone 7, iPhone 8. And that's really all it is. It's just an upgrade from the previous one. All do the same thing. All take the same calibers. All have the same capacity. All weigh the same. All do the same thing. It's just a couple of features that make them a little more different and make them a bit more user-friendly. But otherwise, really do the same thing. You could pick up a Gen 3 on a special for like $8 grand, $8.5 grand. That's the ballpark I would budget for. Plus cost of application licensing processes. I think you can confidently say from A to Z, including your proficiency application, your competency application, purchasing a safe, getting a good holster, buying Hollowpoint carry ammunition for defensive purposes. You can budget around 15,000 Rand altogether. The good thing is that this expense does not come all at one time. It's over a period of time. Like I said, there's 2 processes to this. There's your proficiency and competency and your license. With your proficiency and competency, that part could cost you maybe about 2,000 to 3,000 Rand, depending, and then the rest of it will be for the license application to actually buy the firearm. Buying the firearm from a gun shop like myself is your most expensive step in the process, and but it's the most important process. It's my most important step in the process, but also the most expensive. Once you buy your gun, that's the biggest expense out the way, and from there it's a pretty straightforward process. Are fiber optic sights effective at night or when in low light? No. Fiber optic sights are not effective in low light. Well, they are somewhat effective in low light, but they were not designed to be glow in the dark or anything else. Fiber optic sights, for those who don't know, had a picture, it would make more sense, but they've got a little fiber optic, a colored strand of an actual, like a rod, a yellow or green rod inside your sights. So when you pick up the gun to use your sights, it makes it much more visible. They were meant for daytime sport shooting application more than it was defensive purposes. For defensive purposes, you want to look at something called tritium. Tritium is a radioactive compound that they've encased within steel. It's low-level radiation, so it doesn't really cause anything else. People worry about cancer and those type of things. It's low-level radiation stuff encased within steel, and basically what happens is that it doesn't need artificial light, batteries, or anything else. The second you go from light to dark, it automatically starts glowing. So it glows like an emerald green in the evening, and it starts glowing. So it glows like an emerald green in the evening, and those are the type of sights I would recommend for night sights. Fiber optics are great, especially the high colored ones, but they are more meant for sport shooting. I wouldn't recommend them for carry. I always try and upsell the customer to tritiums if they want to go for everyday carry. What would you suggest to upgrade from stock steel sights? I would definitely suggest tritium. Look at a brand called Trueglow. The importers for Trueglow is the shop I used to work at just over a year ago. Southern Sky Operations. I've got some stock in my shop at the moment. If you're based in Durban, I can also put them on for you. If not, we can get them sent up to gun shops in Durban, in Joburg, or wherever else you are based. I'm more than happy to put them on for you. This shouldn't be an issue. Why are we encouraged to use Hollowpoints for self-defense, but military and police can't use it? Excellent question. What are the types of guns are suitable for self-defense, preferably easy to carry around and use? Okay, I'm going to answer Talha's questions firstly. So, huge misconception is that, especially within the police themselves, if I had a rand for every single time I had a customer walk into the shop and tell me that he got stopped in a roadblock by a policeman and he confiscated his hollow point ammunition because he said it was illegal, I'd be a gazillionaire by now. The reality is that it's just poor education and poor information that's been circling. So there was the Hague Accord, or the Hague Treaty, drawn up between the World War countries. I think it was between countries during World War I. I think it was World War I or World War II, the Hague Accord. Basically, it was a gentleman's agreement between the countries at war to say that during times of war, we will not use expanding ammunition on each other. Expanding ammunition refers to hollow point ammunition, meaning that the ammunition or the bullet has a hollow center so that on impact, it expands and opens up. And as it travels through whatever you're aiming at, be it flesh, matter, or tissue, whatever the case is, there's less chance of what you call over-penetration. Over-penetration means that an average 9mm bullet travels at about 1,300 feet a second top speed. At a close proximity, 3 to 7 meters, that bullet could actually go through the person you are shooting at and actually cause collateral damage somewhere else, and then you can get charged with culpable homicide because it's through your negligence that an innocent person was hurt. Expanding ammunition is recommended carry. Why? Because the chances of over-penetration is less, because on impact, the bullet slows down. But what it does is that as it opens up, it causes more damage, which means it irritates the person you're shooting at. So it's more effective and it does more damage, granted you're shooting on target, right? So, military. It explains why our country, our military, or most militaries around the world don't use hollow points, because of the Hague Accord. All countries who have a military will not distribute or dispense hollow point. Who have a military will not distribute or dispense hollow point to their soldiers. Number one. Police. Why does it affect the police? I can give you a long story. I can give you a short story. I'll give you the short story. Cost factor. Cost factor, it's just that hollow point ammunition is much more expensive. They're going to issue full metal jacket ammunition instead of hollow point ammunition. So that's definitely what it is. Now, understand something. Unless you are employed by the police or the military, you are entitled and encouraged by people like myself to carry hollow point ammunition. Hollow point ammunition is more effective. It is safer to carry. It is just a better carry for a civilian. If you are carrying full metal jacket and you are shooting in a crowded area, you could cause unnecessary damage to innocent people or even property. So you want to carry hollow point ammunition, and it'll be better for you. Now, another thing is, if anyone ever tells you hollow point ammunition is illegal, why am I selling it over the counter? We are one of the most legislated industries in South Africa, even in the world. For me to open up my gun shop, I have a 2.5 meter high vault. Some of the guys that are watching helped me build it, and they know what I'm talking about. The vault structure had to be to a SABS specification. I've had to have brick, steel, concrete, another layer of brick. I've had to have a 0.5 ton vault door the banks have installed at my shop to ensure all the guns are always kept safely. So we are one of the most regulated industries out there. I've had to produce documents this big to the police to be able to allow them for me to deal in firearms. So if I am one of the most regulated industries in the country and I'm allowed to sell hollow point ammunition over the counter, how can it be illegal? It wouldn't be so. But unfortunately, the level of education and the level of understanding of a basic patrol officer who's going to stop you in a roadblock, he's not going to understand that. He's going to be saying, listen, I was told that I can't carry full hollow point ammunition, so you can't carry it. I'm going to confiscate this ammunition. And legally, you are within your right to resist, but to a point, don't make it an issue. Rather go to the station and sort it out there. Don't get too caught up in that. What other types of guns are suitable for self-defense, preferably easy to carry around and use? Well, any gun that's suitable for self-defense should be easy to carry around and use. That's why the more smaller guns are always going to be more popular than the bigger guns, because they offer that exact purpose. No one wants to carry a big gun around with them because it's just difficult to carry, and you don't want everyone knowing you're carrying a gun. You don't want to walk around in a shopping mall in Gateway or the Pavilion or Rosebank or Canal Walk or wherever it is, wherever you stay, with a huge bulge coming out of your shirt or your pants or your bag or wherever it is that you're carrying the gun. You want to get something that's easy to conceal, but you must be able to get it when you need it. There are other MIGs out there. If you're not going to buy a Glock have different sizes, different calibers, and so on within their range. I would definitely recommend CZ. CZ is one of the oldest firearm manufacturers that we have in South Africa that are available. Sorry, they're based in the Czech Republic, Eastern Europe as well. So just a little FYI, Glock is from Austria, CZ is from the Czech Republic, and they make seriously good stuff. They don't just make handguns; they make rifles. They make a whole lot of different things. So definitely, I would say a CZ. Okay, Riz, I'll come to that now. Adidas. Do you think our application system? So recently, as in about a year ago, there was a huge court case that took place between the South African Arms and Ammunition Dealers Association and the SAPS, where the South African Arms and Ammunition Dealers Association took the SAPS to court and won, because according to the Firearms Control Act of 2000, which was amended in 2004, there was meant to be a system for dealers to be able to tap into at any point in time to see information about specific firearms that have been uploaded to the SAPS system, to say, oh, if I have a serial number ABC123, I want to punch this into the system and see who this firearm belongs to. That system was meant to be up and running. For 16 years, 15 years, it would never existed, and dealers just kind of made do. And it got to a point where there was so much of backlog with all the paperwork that the dealers decided, now it's time for us to enforce our rights. They took the SAPS to court, and only then did the SAPS come up with an interactive system, and that too, it was supposed to be free. They ended up charging the dealers to buy the system from them, and they outsourced it to a private IT company in Centurion, and only then did they actually get to the point where they took it to the next level. I think that, in terms of making the application system even easier, I don't think we'll see that in our lifetime. I'm going to try and find an article that I found a couple of years ago. CFR, Central Firearms Registry, on a monthly basis receives 12,000 applications for firearms on a monthly basis. So you can imagine the sheer volumes that they are doing. This was a couple of years ago. I can tell you that the number has increased to 15,000, 20,000 in a month. Now, remember, it sounds like a lot, and you're thinking to yourself, are those 20,000 people applying for self-defense? No. You need to understand, within that number, it's a case of individuals applying for self-defense, sport shooting, hunting. It's security companies, it's private individuals, it's municipalities, but it just shows how popular or how many firearms, legally speaking, are actually in processing in South Africa. Ritz, okay, you said speak about calibers favored for self-defense carry. For those of you who are interested, and those of you who are aware of the different calibers that are available in South Africa or globally, personally speaking, having literally put my finger to reload, if you are reloading, it's always going to be available, because, and I really don't want to sound all doom and gloom, but the police carry 9mm ammunition. So it's just nice to kind of make it universal. The police carry 9mm ammunition. So it's just nice to kind of make it universal in that sense, that if the police are carrying a specific round and we need to get ammunition for whatever reason, whether it comes to that point, then 9mm ammunition is available. It's plentiful in terms of the capacity within the magazine. So remember, each gun has a different size, and the size determines the capacity of the magazine. Inside the magazine itself, you can take so many rounds, so many bullets, and those bullets, the capacity is also determined by the size of the bullet. So if you take a bigger bullet, which statistically and ballistically has no superior effect at a 9mm, you are now reducing the capacity. So instead of having 15 rounds of 9mm, you're going to have 12 or 13 rounds of 40 caliber, which is the next bigger caliber. But there's no scientific evidence to state that a 40 caliber is more effective in a self-defense situation than a 9mm. So definitely 9mm is, for me, the way to go for self-defense purposes. Are there any issues to carry use a Section 16 license for firearm for self-defense? Nope, absolutely not. I have a copy of the Firearms Control Act on my phone. So for those of you who want to know, Section 16 basically refers to dedicated sportsmen. Like I mentioned in my profile, on my bio, I'm a dedicated sportsman. I have been for 6 years now with multiple organizations. As a dedicated sportsman, I'm allowed to own unlimited firearms and be in possession of unlimited ammunition. It sounds really hectic that how can a person allowed to be, but if you understand the loopholes that we have, or the hoops that we have to jump through to get to that point for sport shooting purposes and for trading, it's just it's a lot of paperwork. And yes, you are allowed to carry your self-defense Section 16 sport guns for self-defense. Remember, the way the law is written was a bit intelligent, but the people who are enforcing the law are not. Let me clarify. The law itself states that any firearm that is licensed individually to your name can be used for any lawful purpose. That is the actual wording within the law. I'm not sure if there's any lawyers here, and I don't want to get into too much into a debate, self-defense, sport shooting, or hunting. Where I'm going with this is that if you can legally justify that at 3 o'clock in the morning, when something went bump and someone tried to break into your house, and you woke up from your sleep and you grabbed the first gun that was at your disposal in your safe or next to your bed or whatever the case may be, and it happened to be your pump action 12 gauge shotgun, and you use that to defend your life, you are within the realms of the law. As long as the license is that shotgun is licensed to you on your name, and as long as the purposes that you use it for is legal, they will not question you on that because the gun is licensed to you. Basically, by people who imply that you cannot use your sport gun for self-defense, what they're actually saying is that you have a self-defense firearm. You are meant to be training with it and using it regularly on a regular basis. That means that you cannot take that gun to the shooting range to train with it under sport shooting, because that's what you're saying. You're saying you can't use self-defense for sport. You can't go across categories. So you're also saying that I cannot use my sporting gun to go hunting, or take my hunting gun to the shooting range and go and train. It doesn't make sense. They knew this when they were writing the law, hence why they allowed that exception, or the exemption, or they put that phrasing within there. Any gun licensed to any person can be used where it is safe to do so and for a lawful purpose. So no issues with using a Section 16 licensed firearm for self-defense at all. As a matter of fact, personally, I don't carry my self-defense weapon that's licensed under self-defense. I carry my sport gun because it's much easier to conceal. I perform better with that gun, and it just sits with me better. Are guns with pepper bullets still effective compared to using a gun with hollow point bullets? No. Chloe, I would not say that they are effective. At the moment in the industry, there is a huge discussion going on around those new pepper guns that are being sold at security stores all over the country. The problem is the guns are fine. The way the guns are working are fine. But the ammunition, those pepper capsules, cartridges, whatever you want to call it, actually has a primer. For those of you who don't know what a primer is, by definition, a primer is a small metal cup that has an explosive compound inside it. So if you understand the firing sequence within the firearm, when you pull the trigger, there's a pin that sits inside, or like a rod that sits inside the gun, where it kind of shoots forward, or if you have a hammer, it kind of shoots forward and hits the firing pin. The firing pin then shoots forward and hits the back of the bullet, which is the primer. That primer explodes, ignites the powder within the case. The powder burns. There's combustion that takes place. That combustion then causes pressure and forces the bullet down the barrel, and that's how the firing sequence on a gun works. So the problem is that be licensed because they're technically kind of gas guns type of thing, but the ammunition inside there has primers. So you need to have a license for that caliber. But unfortunately, like anything else, things fall through the cracks, and there's not much enforcement of the law, and people are getting away with that. The problem, though, is I read an article a couple of weeks ago that someone got arrested for carrying those pepper bullets in one of those gas guns. So it's a dangerous game. I would rather take the same money and effort and put it into buying and licensing a real weapon. But I don't think they're effective in any way. All it does is makes a person very angry. If you're gonna use lethal force against a person, a projectile weapon like a firearm, I would rather use an actual firearm more than a pepper bullet. I'm not here to disorientate a person. I'm here to stop the threat at whatever means possible. Because if I do not stop that threat, if something happens to me, if I am maimed, killed, or hurt, or if I don't stop that threat, I don't know where this person will stop in terms of how much they want to hurt my family. And my family is my responsibility. I'm not willing to leave that to anybody else. Would lasers help at night? Meaning there would be no need to align sights, just laser and you on your target. I would tell you, my biggest advice here is that try it one day. And I'm not being cynical about this. I'm being dead serious about this. Try this one day. Try at whatever distance you want to use. See during the day and during the night. If you have a laser on your gun, if you can pick up that laser under stress, under movement, or any other type of kind of commotion, it's not possible. Lasers, in my opinion, I have a saying: lasers are for two types of people in this world: SWAT team and idiots, and we are neither one. But no, that's just like a little saying I have when I talk to customers. Lasers have its place within training. It helps you pick up discrepancies within your technique, but I don't think they have a place in self-defense training or self-defense use of firearms. I think that if you want to put a laser, you're better off putting a torch or a light, because a light can illuminate your target, whereas a laser cannot. A laser is used more for pointing, but the thing is that to be able to pick up that laser under stress and movement, not possible. I would rather you get a torch over a laser. That's just my opinion. I don't know how many people are still watching. Are there any more questions? I'll give it another couple of minutes before we wrap up. It's already 20 to 11. Just going to go through the questions one more time and see if I've answered everything. Guys, once again, anybody has any further questions, it is 20 to 11, and I don't want to drag on this on anymore. My details are available anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp groups. You guys can contact me individually. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have about anything else regarding firearms and anything else in general that I feel that I'm qualified on, but I don't think that I am qualified to be lecturing on anything else other than firearms. Do you plan on doing more live streams in the future? I haven't seen my phone, but I see I've got quite a few messages. I want to see what the response is. I'll have a chat with streams. I can talk all day about this, which is why I decided to make a career out of it. So I can sit here and talk for hours. As you can see, this is the second session, and I've already been speaking for 1 hour, 10 minutes. Anwar, shooting 50 caliber in South Africa. I mentioned an organization earlier called Gun Owners Association of South Africa, or GOSA, G-O-S-A, as the acronym goes. They have a roadshow of sorts, which they have maybe twice a year or so. And they go to a local shooting range and they hire out the shooting range for 2 days. And they put up stalls and they sell food and they have events and those type of things. And they had one. They had one a few months ago, towards the end of last year, where they were bringing all these once-in-a-lifetime guns, like a 50 caliber and all these other weird and wonderful. It's absurd. But the thing is, yes, it's one of those things. It's like skydiving or bungee jumping. You probably will never do it again, especially in a caliber like that, because to license a 50 caliber in South Africa is near impossible. I only know of one guy who tried, and that too, he didn't actually get anywhere with it. But nonetheless, there are places available, and there are events that are available, and maybe you keep in touch with me, and then we can keep our ears on the ground and to see what events are coming up, and we can do that. And yes, Moarabi's got a good point. If you have a torch in your gun, you still need training. It's not a case of now you have your torch and you can just point the gun anywhere you want. It requires training, but I would choose a torch over a laser any day of the week. Is there a preferred order of buying personal firearms? Example, one handgun, two a second handgun. Yes, you said it there, right there. For me personally, when I went down this path, I had the same dilemma. What is the process? Because obviously, besides owning a gun for self-defense purposes, it's also a passion of mine. I enjoy shooting. I enjoy anything to do with firearms, and I obviously wanted more than one. So it was a question of what is priority. Definitely, two handguns before you even think about getting a shotgun or a rifle. The reasoning is as follows: if you have two different caliber handguns, one of them must be a 9mm. If you have two 9mm, even better. The benefit of having a 9mm and another caliber, if you have two different calibers, is that if for whatever reason you want to do some type of training, a 9mm is always going to be more affordable than bigger calibers or even smaller calibers. And even don't think that the smaller the caliber, the cheaper the bullet. Anything smaller than a 9mm is actually more expensive. So 9mm is not only the most affordable, it's the most effective. It just makes sense with 9mm. Also understand that if you get involved in a situation where you have to use lethal force against an individual, you will probably have to surrender your firearm to the police for a certain amount of time while they do ballistic testing on that handgun. It's not because they're accusing you of anything else. It's procedure, it's law that your gun has to go in for ballistics to see if it's been used in any other types of crimes anywhere else in South Africa. So in that time, you don't have a gun. I have a friend who got involved in a shooting, and all charges were dropped. He killed 2 guys in his house. However, after that, the legal battle was a nightmare, and he ended up losing his gun for a year. He got it back, but thankfully he had a second gun. And in that time, you are allowed to carry your second gun. There's no restriction on you. So definitely having a second handgun is a recommendation. You don't want to be caught figuratively and literally with your pants down, where now you only have 1 gun and you've got 6 rifles, and your 1 handgun goes away for ballistics. Now you're left completely unarmed. You can't carry a gun around with you. So definitely in that order, like you said. Yeah, you're more than welcome, Chloe. Ridwan, appendix for side carry views. Yeah, look, I used to be a side carry kind of guy. So guys, just what we mean by appendix for side carry. Appendix basically meaning carrying the gun in the front of your body versus carrying the gun on the side of your body. Obviously under concealed circumstances. I used to be a side carry kind of guy. From the time I was a young boy, if you gave me a pellet gun and I had to tuck it in my pants, it would go in the side of my pants. Having watched movies and policemen carrying guns on their side all the time, it was natural for me. However, as I got more into it and I started researching and discussing and playing with ideas more, I realized that what they call appendix carry or front carry, or if this is the center line of your body, just slightly to the right, but in front here, just on your hip in the front, I would definitely recommend appendix carry over side carry, simply because easier to get to, easier to disarm you, easier to conceal, easier to get to while driving. I don't know how everybody else here is. The nature of my work at the moment is I spend a lot of the time on the road, and I have to be able to get to my gun quickly if I'm behind a steering wheel. If it's on my side, it means that I have to kind of do this and then get the gun out. Whereas if I'm here, it's just straight up and I can get the gun out and use it. It's just so much quicker having the gun in your, what I call the control center, which is front of your body, just kind of from your chest downwards, appendix carry all the way. Shoulder carry for winter under the coat jacket. Ish. Shoulder carry, I'm not a huge advocate for shoulder carry. The movies have made it extremely popular where you see people carrying their guns over here. I wouldn't recommend that, simply because rule number 1 and number 4 of the 4 universal firearm safety rules is don't point the gun at anyone or anything that you're unwilling to harm. So the entire time that you're carrying the gun, it's pointed behind you. It's pointed in the complete opposite direction. Yes, most guns are designed in a way that unless you pull the trigger, the gun's not going to go off. I wouldn't recommend you carrying a gun pointing in the complete opposite direction that you are facing the whole time. I wouldn't feel comfortable with someone carrying a gun whose barrel's pointed at me the whole time. Secondly, also is in terms of the speed of getting the gun out when you need it, I don't like this movement. As you can see, as I pull the gun out, what's happening is that all this negative space here, I'm muzzle masking, or what I'm pointing the gun at people that it doesn't need to be pointed at. Whereas if the gun is out here, it's straight up and it's straight at my target, or straight up here, it's straight at my target, as opposed to coming out and now having this negative energy and negative angle on everything. For winter, I would just suggest maybe carrying on the hip a nice outside the waistband holster and a coat or a jacket over it, definitely. Yeah, Mo was one of the guys who convinced me to start carrying appendix, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Any more questions, guys? Or is everybody sleeping? I see there's still 11 people listening to my boring voice, but nonetheless, anybody have anything to say? Like I said, my details of training. Do people still carry revolvers for self-defense? Not many, and I don't recommend revolvers for self-defense. Revolvers, maybe about 30 years ago, were good carry guns, because the level of threat that you would face, it would be sufficient for that, but not in today's day and age where you might need more ammunition in your gun. You also might need to reload the gun quicker. With a revolver, it's very difficult to reload the gun, the mental gun to own if you've been passed down generation to generation. For self-defense, the calibers are good. 38 Special, 357 Magnum, 44 Magnum, those type of calibers. They're extremely powerful calibers, meaning that if you're hitting on target, they're going to do damage. They're going to incapacitate whichever person is trying to harm you. But the problem is that the ammunition is expensive to train with. The maximum you're going to get in a cylinder for a revolver is 6 rounds. And so definitely no for revolver for self-defense. But there are people who still carry. but it's more your old school guys, or more, I would say, with all due respect, people who can't afford to buy pistols. And you need to understand that when I worked at the gun shop that I worked at, and even my current clientele, there are a lot of people, people have this notion that guns are only for rich people or people from middle class. I promise you, I have people and customers and friends who live in townships where they are victims themselves. They're the biggest victims because these gangs and these criminals rule these townships. And they have to actually spend money on buying firearms, and they can't afford to spend 10,000 rand on a gun. So they have to buy something that's affordable. You can pick up a revolver for $500. What will be the best accessory would you use doing to a firearm over and above ammo and training? What will be the best accessory you would advise? The holster and put it back when you need it effectively and efficiently. There's no point in terms of all the training that you've done. Any weapons type of training, be it martial arts, knife, stick, or gunfighting, accessibility is key, meaning having access to the weapon when you require it is absolutely crucial, but not something that, This video at a later stage. Yes, there is a difference between sport shooting versus tactical and self-defense. Understand the intention and the objective of what you are training. Your objective is completely different. You're not worried about scoring. You're not necessarily worried about time. Yes, there is a sense of urgency in terms of what you do, but there's no real scoring system. And in terms of how what they place priority on. So in sport shooting, the two main things you focus on is speed and accuracy, two extremely important things in self-defense as well. The problem is that when you make those the only two things, it becomes a problem. There are a lot more factors you need to take into consideration when considering self-defense training, such as tactics, movement, structures, shot placement, being able to use the skills and being able to understand when to use certain things, understanding lighting conditions, understanding how to carry the gun, understanding presentation. There's so much more to it than just shooting quickly and shooting accurately. But sport shooting is an excellent platform to be able to train. Ridwan and I, who's been talking, Ridwan SA Tactical, he and I have been friends for a long time, and he can tell you we've used sport shooting platforms as our training sessions whenever we want to. We don't care what the scores are. We don't care if we come out first or second or third. If we want to use it for that type of purpose, we just use the platform to be able to practice whatever we need to practice. We're not worried about points, because if you're training for self-defense or for life or death, there's no such thing as a point system. You need to do what needs to be done. Do you ever wish you were living in the US, those states that are easy on gun laws? I do wish I lived in a place like Texas where you could literally carry a gun whenever you want. I really do. Look, it's a sensitive topic, because I do believe that something needs to be done in the US. Gun owning, gun culture. They have a whole lot of people who are not going out there and shooting up schools and whatever else. It's just the crazy people that are getting their hands on guns, and they need to somehow come up with a system of ensuring that those people, firstly, do not get their hands on those guns, and they minimize the damage that these people do when they do end up going on these killing sprees or whatever you want to call it. But yes, I do wish I lived in a place like that. I think my wife would be very upset. More than a certain amount of rounds in your magazine. Completely useless law. That doesn't make sense at all. It just restricts you in terms of a law-abiding citizen. It doesn't make any sense. Talha, you're welcome. Yes, please get in touch with me. I'm glad that you got your competency done. That's usually what holds up the guys the most, because what happens is guys come into the shop, they get excited, or they get in touch with me, and they want to go to the shooting range and they start shooting, only for me to tell them to listen, from now till the time you get the gun physically in your hand, it's an 8 to 10 month waiting period. And it's a long period, and people are usually impatient at this point. So yeah, I'm glad that you already got the process started. We can be in touch when you need to buy a firearm. Gun-free South Africa. Did anyone have a debate or discussion with them, explaining to the correct mindset reasons? Yes. My thoughts on gun-free South Africa are the same thoughts as anybody else in the industry. They're obviously a political organization where it's so weird that the South African Police Service are more than happy to give them a voice and a platform, to the point where Gun Free South Africa who are lobbying, for you guys who don't know, Gun Free South Africa is a political organization which are lobbying very hard, not just to remove guns from citizens. They want the police and the military to be disarmed as well. I mean, can you believe in a country like South Africa? It's one conversation having about whether citizens should own self-defense firearms. That let's have that conversation. We are having that conversation. But imagine now pushing to the point where you don't want the police. You want to be like a country like, I think it's Vietnam or Korea or one of these countries or it's the UK, where police don't have guns. But now you can't compare the levels of crime, violent crime, that is occurring. I mean, it's just absurd. So Gun Free South Africa, I definitely disagree with anything. And what's strange is that the SAPS are willing to give them a platform and a voice at important meetings happening at a very high level, but not willing to give organizations like SAGA or GOSA, which Gun Owners Association of South Africa, a voice or a platform to discuss legislation and so on and so forth. But it's just absurd. And we've had discussions and debates with them, but it's like talking to a brick wall. They're not willing to accept any scientific fact. They promote information that hasn't been verified, and they prey on people's fears. They don't have any valid arguments. They prey on the fact that people are afraid. They use the media to promote a false image of things, and they just know winning with them. But there are rumors, and none of them are verified, about whether or not these people are being funded by other political organizations which have very bad intentions. I don't know, people, behind the scenes pulling strings, trying to make things worse in South Africa. I know it's not uncommon in South Africa. It's happened before in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised that it's somebody who's pulling strings in the back, trying to give Gun Free South Africa a platform to promote their ideas. Next question, if there is. I think we should be wrapping up now, guys. It's almost 11 p.m. I'm not sure if anybody's even listening. There's 6 people left. I think we'll take one more question if there is, and then we'll call it a night. And then this video should be up for everybody else to see. Any more questions? If a person has dedicated status with 3 organizations, if you fail to uphold the status with one, is your gun license still safe if your status is valid with the other? Yes. On your license card, it does not stipulate that you have to maintain your status with that specific organization. As long as you've met the national criteria in terms of what is legislated for Section 16 licenses, then that is sufficient. Even if you've got one and the other, it's fine. By law, you do not need to have more than one. So if you had 3, it was just a bonus. As long as you have one, that's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine. Keep loading the questions. Yusuf Desai, how are you, sir? Guys, have any more questions? You can shoot. Otherwise, we're going to call it a night. Anybody else? Mahmoud Hafaji, how can we help you, sir? You're welcome, Mo. Mahmoud Hafaji, it better be an intelligent question. The safety on the Glock, what do you think about the pin on the trigger? I think that's all you need on a Glock. I think that's all you need on any handgun. You do not need a manual thumb safety on any gun. I think this topic will take me another hour and a half to discuss. But rule number 3 of your 4 universal firearm safety rules states that your finger stays off the trigger until you are ready to fire. So as long as you are adhering to rule number 3, you don't need to worry about having a manual safety on a firearm. A manual safety on any handgun is just a hindrance to you using that gun when you need it. It means that you have to train yourself to draw the gun, switch off the safety, and then engage whatever threat is coming your way. It's too many things to do. I would rather have a gun that's designed like a Glock, where as long as I can do whatever I want, it's got drop safeties and firing pin safeties to ensure no accidental discharge will happen unless you depress that trigger. I would rather have a gun like that. That's draw and fire as opposed to a manual safety. Do the females in your family all carry? I feel we need more females to start carrying. I absolutely agree. The reality is that there are very few people within my family that share my passion. I think they're more understanding that they are sharing of my passion, and that's fine. They let me. And then as the years went on, she realized that she didn't have to be with me all the time. She stopped attending shooting ranges with me, and after we had kids as well, it just got a bit more complicated. But I can tell you, having two daughters, my wife knows already, and she's not going to resist on this. As soon as they are of legal age, I will definitely be taking them to the shooting range to train them and get them trained up. And this is something that I want to discuss as well. I don't know if there's enough people on here to discuss this, but I believe that you can reduce fear of firearms in people through education and knowledge. And Anwar and I had a discussion about this. I don't know if Anwar is still here listening. I should have mentioned this at an earlier point as well. Is that if more people are educated about the use of safe handling of firearms, there'd be less fear, less sensitivity, less anxiety when it comes to handguns or handguns in general. It's through education. If more people knew how to use them, we would fear them less. People fear what they don't understand. People fear what they don't know, and people always fear and give into stereotypes, generalizations, and these stigmas that are always created in the media. And that's the issue. If you educate people about how to use firearms safely, if you talk to them, if you take them to the range and allow them to fire a few shots and show them how to do it in a safe manner, it will reduce that fear. I actually feel that more than males, I think females, I have mentioned it earlier in my talk, that females need to own firearms more than males, because I think they have more reason to. Obviously, depending on the social structure in terms of how it works. Definitely. So yeah, Anwar and I discussed that. It's about fear and knowledge. Also a bit of ignorance. Through education and knowledge, you reduce fear and ignorance. Remember, ignorance and innocence is not the same thing. Some people are innocent; they don't know much about it. Other people are ignorant; they don't want to know about it. There's a big difference between the two, and not just within firearms, in general life as well. But definitely need to educate our females more on shooting and training. As a matter of fact, when I went for my instructor's course a couple of years ago, there was a husband and wife team there. And look, I don't know what the previous topic was about. A couple of nights ago, I think the sister spoke on hijab. I mean, here was a female at a firearms instructor course in a hijab, asking questions on the shooting range and training. And I just thought to myself, what a great avenue. Because I'm sure there are a lot of females out there who are probably a little modest, a little nervous, who don't want to be taught by a male instructor. And here we have a female instructor. I think we need more female instructors out there. Maybe my daughter will be the first one. Who knows? There's still some time, but we can get there. Best place to keep the handgun at night. Look, I don't know. I don't want to be caught, literally and figuratively, saying the wrong thing with my pants down. But I keep my handgun out of the safe. Somewhere easily accessible to me. So I have a shelf just above my bed, which my kids can't reach, but I know that it's there. It's inside a holster, so the trigger is covered, so I can't accidentally squeeze the trigger if I'm grabbing it in the dark. But it's somewhere near to me. Excuse me. The rest of my guns are kept in a safe. Like I said, I've got 14 firearms. It's not possible for me to keep all 14 with me at all times, as much as I'd love to. I think people might give me a weird look when I walk around, but definitely keep one my handgun or my go-to gun with me all the time. I keep it not on my nightstand, because if my kid wakes up before me and ends up going next to my bed and touching it or playing with it, it's a problem. Believe it or not, she doesn't have that problem. She knows about it. When she sees me carrying it, she'll tell me that's her gun. She says that's my gun, and she called it her gun, and she's always intrigued by it, but she's never been reckless with it. She's never tried to grab it or steal it, even when it's been lying somewhere where she would climb up or whatever the case is. She's always been respectful of it, and that's how you get around this. You educate, you teach them from a young age. So for me, I have a shelf above my bed. Nobody can reach there. Wife knows not to touch it. If she does have to touch it, she knows finger off the trigger, pointed in a safe direction. We're good to go. That's why I keep my handgun at night. That handgun at the night in the nights question is a valid one, because you look at statistics. You look at statistics. You might need the gun more likely at a time in the middle of the night than you would any other time of the day. No, Mohammed Hafizi, that is not wise. You cannot keep your gun under your daughter's pillow, no matter how much you've educated her about it. I wouldn't suggest that, but I know you told you that, so that's fine. Are there any other? Can you let me know? WhatsApp me, send me a signal, a smoke signal. Can we cut it now? Is that fine? We can do another session some other time if everybody's happy. We can start on time and make sure my computer doesn't cut out while I'm answering questions. Do you carry a spare mag with you daily? Yes, on a daily basis, I carry 4 items from a self-defense perspective. I carry my gun obviously loaded in a holster to my pocket so I don't lose it, but I've trained to be able to draw it when I need it. I carry 1 spare magazine, and I carry a handheld torch. When I say handheld torch, I'm not talking about a China Mall special or a big, massive mag light. It's a nice, very powerful LED torch that I've trained to use. It's specifically designed for tactical purposes. I've got a special pouch for it that I keep in my belt. Yes, I carry a lot of stuff on me. It comes at a cost. It's a lot of stuff to carry on your hips on a tactical duty belt type of thing. But I feel that it's important, not just to work in conjunction with your firearm, but a flashlight in general is a useful tool, especially since we live in a country we have load shedding, especially since if you're carrying a gun, you need to be able to see what you're shooting at. I'm not very popular for saying this, but it's a reality. If you do the research in terms of actual live gunfights that happen around the world, the chances of a civilian having to do a magazine change, so basically you're in a gunfight, you finished your magazine, you take your magazine out, you put a new magazine in, you carry on shooting. The chances of a civilian having to do a magazine change in an actual gunfight is very minimal. The evidence is there to suggest it. You can research CCTV footage, you can research guys who have published statistics and articles about it. It's not a priority skill to have. So I would not worry about carrying 10,000 magazines on me with my gun. 1 spare magazine in a case of event that you might need it is sufficient. Anything more than that is just a bonus. If you can, absolutely, but I wouldn't consider it a priority. Okay, guys, I think let's wrap it up there. You guys have been great. I hope this has been informative for people. I hope I've changed some minds. This was very impromptu. I just kind of spoke from the mind, from the heart. Like I said, I do this for a living. I'm very passionate about it. But is it true that it's better to kill the robber than to shoot the person and he lives to appear in court? I don't want to give an answer like this legally speaking, but there is definitely an element of, if the person that you are shooting manages to survive for whatever reason, there have been maybe, but there is definitely an element of people who say that shoot when the threat has stopped, and as long as he's still breathing, there's still a threat. So I don't want to. I'm going to just withhold an answer on that. I would rather answer that in my private capacity, off an official YouTube video, which anyone else can watch. Do you carry Hollowpoints only in your mag? Yes, I carry 1 make of Hollowpoints all the way. 1 type. I do not carry different makes. I do not carry different types. It's 1 Hollowpoint make in my mag, in all my magazines. It's standard. It's universal. I don't want to mix. The gun reacts differently every time you put different ammunition through it. I do not want to cause the gun to malfunction or for it to react differently under a stressful situation. Guys, any other questions I'm going to ask you guys, WhatsApp me privately. My number and details are available. You can contact anybody else, Anwar, or any of the MSA groups or Facebook, Instagram, or social media. I'm big on all of them, so you guys can find me there. Once again, I hope that anyone who was on the fence, who needed information, who was unsure about the legalities, was unsure about its place in a Muslim community or within a general community, within the circumstances of South Africa, I hope I managed to answer that and bring light and shed a bit of light onto how bad things are. I'm just glad that you guys are a bit more educated and a bit more knowledgeable about how things work. Like I said, contact me personally if you need anything else. We'll leave it there for the evening. Shukran, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.